Hello?
Some of us can't hear.
There is no sound.
Okay, Lauren, if you want to unmute us, we'll. All right, so for the folks online, we had not yet started the meeting, which is why you could not hear us up until now. So we are about to begin. So it's 1:03 on October 23rd, 2025, and we are here for a workshop regarding the comprehensive plan, the land use component, AM 0007-24. And the board's picking up where we left off from the last workshop with regard to reviewing the proposed map designations. And I wanted to mention to the board, I know we had a comment from Alan Songstad, that a recommendation that he was referring to, my understanding is how the planning commission worked through the map themselves, which was they worked on an area, discussed it as they had majority agreement on an area to change or not to change. They just would make that change on the map and then work into the next geographic area and try to just progress their way through that way. I think that would be wise for us to do as well. And with the intent of hopefully being able to run a little bit more efficiently in the map, talking with GIS, we will attempt today for me to drive where the board's looking on the map to get us to where we all want to focus in. And then as we have majority agreement on a particular designation needed to accept the area as is or make a change, Chad will live update the map, so then we should momentarily see that change occur, and then we can move on to the next area. So if the board's in agreement with that approach, we could see if that's more efficient than us trying to point at the screen and have somebody remotely figuring out what we're pointing at.
Not even in the same room. That was good, though. Yeah, I mean, hey,
Made it work, but I think this will be a little bit of an improvement, so if the board's agreeable with that, then we can proceed.
Can we do a clarification as you go through sections? Are you going to do public comment as you go each way, or just kind of go through the whole map and then?
I think we can, it's a great question. As we're looking at a particular area, if we have public comment, I think the best thing would be if public wants to raise their hand so we know that they would like to make a comment on that particular area that we're focusing on. We can just try to integrate that. Otherwise, it might be hard, not knowing how much public comment we might have, to try to do it all at the end, because it would be hard to figure out how much time to account for. Is the board comfortable with that approach?
I agree with that, because if a comment might influence how you want it to change, and if you do it the way you're describing, and they're going to update it kind of in real time, then you'd really just be going backwards when you got to that.
I agree. If we can come to a decision, a conclusion about an area, that would be good for us to just kind of set that and move on. And then we still will have the final determination to be made at the actual public hearing. So, sounds like we're in agreement then with the method. So with that, as I recall, please correct me if I'm wrong, the last place we were discussing and focusing is sort of in the heart of Sable. We had, and I'm with my cursor circling, this area that is currently designated as suburban. And I believe that we were discussing that seemed to be maybe an oversight or a mistake, and didn't seem to have a clear rationale behind why that would be suburban as compared to just being the rural residential based on the surrounding area. And I think the board had concluded that we agreed that it would make sense for that to be a rural residential designation. So I wanted to pick back up there and see whether or not we can get confirmation on that.
it's, what is it zoned right now?
So you want to know the zoning or the land use designation?
The land use segment.
The existing? That's fine.
Yeah.
I just,
No, the
it's
proposed.
easy, it's easier for us to say zoning when we don't mean it.
It
So I
just
wanna
comes out.
confirm, yep. I just
Yeah,
wanna
we're usually
confirm.
talking about.
Let me see if I did this correctly.
The yellow is,
So I'm going to,
And as you're doing that, it might make it flow a little bit better when we're starting it out, that we say what it currently is and what they want, that way
that
we
makes
can
sense.
flow.
So this area is currently designated in the comp plan as rural residential. And so this is the current land use layer that's being shown now. If I can drive correctly, I am going to go back to the recommended. And the recommended at the moment is the suburban.
and the area we're in, that's 95 there going down the middle.
Yes, sir, right here.
And that main offshoot is Coca-Cola Road. Is that Coca-Cola Loop?
So, in which direction?
Heading west.
Okay, so Gun Club here,
Well, that's Gun Club. Okay, so we're up north.
then you go to Spades.
Okay.
And so what was the recommended reason for the change on that one? Was it?
Matt Linscott, Bonner County. You know, when that was mapped, and I don't actually reflect exactly that parcel, but I do know that that's owned by Southside Water and Sewer, along with the parcel to the east of those. That's their application sites. I don't know why that parcel was land use designated for the proposed suburban. Do you recall?
No, I don't offhand.
At the last workshop I recall, no one seemed to have a rationale behind it, so I would recommend you leave it as it's currently designated rural residential.
I support that.
All right, thank you, sir.
Before
Before
we
we-
change, do you want
Yep. Do we have any public comment on this?
Why don't you guys keep that one? Let's just change it so that
Yeah, that's good.
you guys always have one and then the community can share this one.
Did you see Alan's hand go up and I missed it? Okay.
No, I'm just
I heard you say Alan, so I
Waiting
just
to
wanted to
see.
make sure I didn't miss my hand online. It's easy for me to miss. So if somebody sees one, please point it to them. Okay, so we have no public comment on that change. Sounds like the board is in agreement and GIS and making an update. So and I guess, Chad, do we have any idea how long it might take for the update?
3 to 5 seconds.
Okay.
That is too long.
So much for our immediate gratification society. Okay. And then we were also discussing in this area the gravel pit parcels. So we have these parcels. And one of the things that had come up, as I recall, toward the end of the last workshop that I would like us to consider in our discussion is the current ITD recommended changes to the Beaufort to Lakeshore 95 corridor, and how they want to create 2 parallel siding roads. You brought that up, Commissioner, as being forward-thinking. There's, I think, sort of a double-edged sword, advantage, disadvantage. On the one hand, in my opinion, when that project concludes, we should have a safer corridor through Sagal, which is wonderful. On the other hand, it means the county will have inherited new roads that will be county-owned and maintained. And if we, through the comp plan, choose to put potentially significant additional traffic for mixed use on those, then we're gonna have a lot of cost that goes with it. But they're also gonna become a fairly efficient access to 95. So I think we just need to think through and talk through what that implication looks like through the Sagal corridor. And for me, as much as we reasonably can, I think confirming and deciding if there's even more opportunities for any parcels that are south of Sagal that have direct 95 access would be beneficial to the county, so that we're not intentionally trying to put additional load onto county-owned and maintained roads because of the cost that goes with that and the future infrastructure implications. So I just want, for the board's consideration, to think through how we consider where the mixed-use designation lands as it relates to direct access to Highway 95 versus the need to use siding roads.
Is there a reason to even change it? Is there, because it seems like, because this will only impact one versus seeing it, so there can be the question of, is it necessary to make a change at all at this time? Which I'm not sure what the conversation was at the last workshop was, because I think that there's been conversations even between the planning team of, we don't need to include anything at this time either. And when you're looking at growth, that we're growth and where we're really not in charge of it, like we're changing it, an argument could be made for not including anything in it until we can kind of see the path to look at the impact to the county, because we will be making kind of some best guesses. So I don't-
The implication of the Highway 95 changes?
Yeah, in terms of what they'll actually finish and.
The final project configuration?
Yeah,
I mean, what they have right now is only a concept. It is certainly not a final plan, so it could change. And that is also
and fundraising impact that, and so we need to make a change.
I'm not even sure if we should even be thinking about that at this time. I mean, that could be a decade or two down the road. And we're tasked with this today. So,
And that's the balance,
and
right?
if and when that day comes and what their final plan is, then we can revisit, make changes if we see necessary, I think. But it's like a lot of land use issues that come up before us now. It's like, well, what if? I don't know if we can play that game because we don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah, we need to be forward thinking, but I agree, we don't know what the final configuration is gonna look like.
You do have to consider some of that though, because this document is a living document, it's future planning, so it doesn't mean that it's here now, it's what is the impact of the future? And so that's part of what this task requires us to do, it's not what is here today, it's we are creating essentially a growth pattern that will impact exactly what Commissioner Donkey referenced in terms of the roads and the traffic and the residential area and the commercial area there by the decisions of this map. And so it's not just about today, it is actually really the forward, where do we see ourselves in the next few years? And in part, there does have to be a measure of consideration for the project with kind of that disclaimer of that project could change, it could be sped up, it could be halted, they could go back to a different idea. But to me, because of those things, it feels like, do we really need to make a change at this time? Because one property being impacted, does that mean we're ready are we at the point where we need to make a change? That's kind of my thought, because of doing a good job of the future planning of the area as a whole. But we do have to consider what's happening there, because we're planning for how this area will look in years to come, not just tomorrow.
I agree when we consider that we're not really sure what the state's gonna do in this area. And it could have a really significant impact on the use of different parcels, on the existence of some parcels even. I don't know that we have a significant demand in the short term, and since we know there's gonna be changes to the area in the longer term, it might make sense to wait to change from the current land use designations in this corridor until we have more information and more need. So I would prefer not to make changes by expanding the mixed use and the designations through this corridor at this time. Because we have so many of those factors that can't be accounted for. And also a general perspective on when we have an existing legal non-conforming use, I think to preserve the history and the context of that use, and I want to state clearly, I support the legal future ongoing use of gravel pits in the county because it's a necessary natural resource for us to have access to. But I don't see a need to change the designation of these parcels to mixed use. And that I think can be reconsidered as the final highway configuration is known. But until that time, or until another factor comes up, I don't see the need to make change.
I think this looks like that, when we were looking at the Highway 41, and I brought this up of, at one point, some area plans were looking at your industrial areas, and there was a desire to identify, but kind of that end comment was, but did we have enough that required the need to actually designate it? And so a decision was made that it didn't get designated as that, and I think that's where this is, in the same spot.
We'll go in line first. And then Mr. Songstad?
Well, I just want to point out that this is Alan Songstead, resident of Bonner County. Reason that we did the mixed use along 95 in the areas that we did was that we had a sub-area plan, a sub-area committee report or plan that designated, recognized that 95 was a good, potentially commercial area. So we tried to identify parcels along 95 which would be susceptible to that kind of a designation. The county is not only required to look for residential or, to maintain rural character. It also has to have, you have to also look for possibilities of commercial use. And this was one area where a subcommittee for Sago identified areas along 95 that would be susceptible to that. So that's why we changed it. And to me, if you're planning for the next 10 years, I don't think you can be ruled by what the state may do with 95. It's a definitely a commercial corridor now in many places, and that's why we designated it. I think if you take out the mixed use designations, take the gravel pit out of it, do whatever you want with the gravel pit, but to throw the rest of those areas out, I think is a big mistake.
Thank you. Drumheller?
Hi, yeah, this is Susan Drumheller. I live in Sagal, Idaho, and been around long enough to, witness the various battles over proposals for an asphalt batch plant that would go in that area and impact the neighbors. And I guess one of my concerns and the group I serve on the board of Project 7B has been that by including that area, and I don't necessarily object to everything along, I mean, all these changes along Highway 95, but particularly all this property around the gravel pit area. This could potentially allow, under what I understand to be the allowable zones for mixed use. Oh, sorry, I have a dog making noise. That this could potentially allow for industrial use, which then would allow potentially for an asphalt batch plant. So that's one of our concerns there. And this is a big change for one property owner, 30 acres to 221 acres. That would allow high density and multiple different uses. And it seems to serve mainly one property owner in this area. I don't think that there's been a big public outcry asking for this. And instead, I think we probably had a lot of opposition. So I would urge you to return it to, or leave it as is, and definitely don't include that area in going forward with the changes to the land use map. And I think the other ones, deserve scrutiny as well, but I'm not ready to speak on those. Thank you.
Yeah, Matt Linsky here. When those sub-area plans committees, when they gone ahead and met, they didn't have access to what Chad and Mike developed for us on that GIS tool. And so when you say, well, the Highway 41 area didn't have a need for industrial or, commercial uses. However, the GIS tool that we gained access to in about a year and a half ago-ish, I think it's been, actually shows a very limited amount of commercial vacant parcels, only a 2-year inventory of those, in fact. I looked through my MLS. We haven't had a single commercial or an industrial parcel. But people are just assuming that if this gets mixed use, that there's going to be an asphalt plant there. And that's, it could be commercial. Like Alan Songstead made the comment a couple of meetings ago, more than likely it would be commercial because that would be the extension of the already commercial zone there. So I think we do need to go ahead and pay attention that there is a need of the GIS. And likewise, that same exact analysis showed that we had enough residential parcels for 10 years of inventory or more. It's that exact same analysis tool that shows that we only have a couple of years worth of inventory for commercial. When you're discussing that whole Highway 95 proposal, it's changed, I don't know how many times, the projected thoughts on that. I mean, I'm going back 20 years or more on that. I've met with Jason Top and the engineers from ITD. Oh, I guess it's been about a year ago. And the demand is those frontage roads are gonna have to be built similar to what they have down there at Granite Hill. They have to be built to highway spec. It's extra thick pad pour on there. They have to be all season roads, meaning that they're not subject to spring breakup or anything like that. So they're not typically your, what we understand as a county road. Granted, the county probably would have to go ahead and take over maintenance of that, but we don't know when this plan is gonna come about at all. I've had discussions because it's really gonna impact our property. They don't have a clue. Like I said, if everything falls into place, they couldn't even begin construction on this for at least 20 years. That's if everything fell together. But I understand we have to go ahead and do this comprehensive plan. To go ahead and create the descriptors and the criteria that we created for the mixed use land use designation, we have to apply that to all parcels right now. If we're gonna go ahead, it'd be one thing if ITD said, yeah, this is the plan, we're gonna go ahead and begin construction in 5 years or 10 years even. We're starting to go ahead and purchase the land. That would be another story. We don't know when that's gonna happen at all. Thank you.
Do you have any additional public comment?
Sorry. Jonna Plant, I think you guys know how we feel. It benefits one property owner financially, big time, and everybody else loses value. Doesn't matter what happens in the future at this point. We want it rural 5. The people that live there forever thought it was going to continue to be rural residential. The people that moved in felt it was going to be rural residential. Mixed use allows a lot of different things, and I would prefer, if they want it that way, they shouldn't do it through a comp plan, because we can't fight that in the next court. Can't ask for appeal, can't do anything if somebody has a value that they feel is decreased. You can't be heard. This is where we're supposed to be heard. This is where the group is supposed to be heard. This is where we are supposed to be writing it as a group, and you guys are supposed to listen to the group over one to a many. That's all I can say at this point. I just hope you listen to us and hear what we got to say. Thank you.
Any additional public comment?
Monica Gunner, Sagal. This mixed use wraps around all my property, my kids' property. Look at the residences around that's now going to be in this mixed use, and it's just not right. All those little parcels in mixed use, anything and everything can happen in mixed use, and we can't control anything. Once you turn it to mixed use, it's a free-for-all for people who want to come in and build asphalt plants and build industrial smoke stacks, everything. It's just going to be wide open and ruin everybody else around there. And people within this, it's not fair to the current property owners. And there is other places that could have, that is not the place for mixed use. Thank you.
Do you have anyone else for public comment?
Eisner raised her hand after, I think, Drum Hill.
Ms. Eisner?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo what Ms. Drumheller said. I do agree with her. I do believe that the zoning is too large for mixed use. There's too many residential areas in there. I think it would be highly inappropriate. I do think that some of the commercial zones along the highway should be on a case-to-case basis. So like Jonna said, that we can speak up about it, because as the area changes, I mean, people are living in there now. And they know what they bought when they bought in there. So to continuously change these zone designations, especially to such a scary zone as mixed use, is just inappropriate, and I disagree with it. Thank you.
I think we're gonna need to limit public comment to 1 round per person for each area, or we're gonna really struggle to move forward. So for those who have already spoken on the topic, if you're raising your hand again, I'm not gonna call on you at this time, sorry. But so I wanna bring it back then to the board for discussion. And I'll say I acknowledge, as I said at the beginning, that I think having additional mixed use designations along I-95 corridor would be beneficial for growth. But I am concerned knowing that there is a very strong intent for there to be significant changes along the 95 corridor from Beaufort to Lakeshore. It seems to me that focusing more south of Beaufort to provide that direct 95 access, those types of designations would be less problematic than to try to designate things in an area that we are anticipating will have significant changes in the future. So that's my position on it. I believe that the Planning Commission has recommended some expansion as we do move south of Sagal for additional mixed-use designations, and we'll be reviewing that. But it's my opinion that that would be a better future planning approach than to try to make it happen in an area that we have strong reason to believe is going to see significant change.
I don't disagree. I actually can accept Mr. Songstad's comment about if I understand what he's saying with respect to mixed use, and that if needed, just remove the property north of that area. I want to be careful this isn't about somebody's property, it's about the area and the growth as a whole. And so when I look at that, I don't agree with, and we're talking about mixed use, but we keep talking about a specific gravel pit. And for me, my position is that at this time, the gravel pit should not change. I understand the lower portion. I understand how long it will take, for another entity to get their project done. But I also hear, when I listen to both sides on this particular piece of property changing and what the venues are and kind of all of that good stuff, we're here to make the future plan, and I don't see the need for that change on that particular parcel at this time. And I look at the change as, what is the not worst thing, but what is the most severe side that a property can change to? And what's the least? If the least doesn't really matter, it's what do you have the ability to change to? And so if we were to change to what the kind of that full spectrum would be, what does that make that area look like in a residential area? That's how I think of this kind of change when we're talking about that particular parcel that keeps being brought up. And that's a huge change, and the question is, do you need to make that change? Is that change supported now? And I don't see that change as supported at this time. I do understand Mr. Songstad's comment about making other mixed-use changes and removing that parcel from the mixed-use designation to address some of the other issues that were identified on the part of planning.
So I disagree. I do think that we are tasked with updating this comp plan, not waiting for 20 years, what the state may or may not do. I think it would be irresponsible of this board not to act now. As it was stated earlier, this is a living document. If something changes, which someday it may, as far as ITD goes, then we update that area of the comp plan at that time to accommodate whatever changes are made. But for right now, not knowing if or when they may or may not do something, I think it would just be irresponsible for us not to uphold our responsibilities and finish this comp plan now. I don't see any reason why anybody would think that that area there, that corridor 95, would not be considered mixed use. I mean, anytime you drive between here and going to Coeur d'Alene, that is where all the businesses are going to. Keeping it rural 5, to me, makes no sense because that's not a residential area. That is where the infrastructure is to support business and higher density residential. You sure wouldn't want to put it out there 5 miles off of Beaufort Road. That makes no sense. So to me, it only makes common sense that you would put things where the infrastructure is. Back in the old days, when they were moving out west from the east, it was all railroads. That's where business was next to the railroad tracks. It wasn't 20 miles off the railroad tracks, for obvious reasons. I think there's some emotion that plays into this section here of the county. It is very hot and contested, and I understand that. I have my issues where I live. But that being said, I chose to live where I'm at. If you live next to a city, to think that that will never become incorporated at some time down the road, kind of being naive in my opinion, that cities do grow. Everything grows, unfortunately. We can't stop that growth. So I disagree that this should be addressed, and I do think that it should be changed according to what the planning commission did here. I don't see any reason not to.
Okay.
I think it does, it gets addressed by a decision that gets made on how you update it, whether you change it or don't change it. So it is addressing that particular area. And when you look at this map is showing you that this is residential. It's a residential area that has this parcel in the middle of that area. And so you're trying to balance those two together. And so you can't, if you make a change today that allows for an extreme usage, you don't get to go back in time and undo it. And that is in part where I'm sitting with is this a change on that area of the map that needs to happen now, because you could potentially be creating an impact that negatively impacts, and you don't get to go back in time. And so when you look at where this, there is an argument to be made for the way in which you change it for a parcel that currently is a little bit locked into what they can and cannot do. This allows for all of those conditions to kind of be pulled out, and it can change that. And so when people choose where they want to, part of it is based on what is your zoning, what is your land use. And yes, those things are going to change in some ways, but this would create a significant change for only one parcel, but it impacts all the parcels around. And so the question for me is there a need at this time that pushes it one way or another? And it really doesn't, because this, if it stays the same here, it's kind of business as usual for everybody. It's what you're addressing is what impact you could be making to the area that could be something that you cannot change because we don't have the information to change. So would we be changing it sooner than we have the information to evaluate the impacts to the infrastructure, to the residents, to the commercial, all of that? We would just be saying change it and then deal with whatever the fallout is. And I can see the kind of concern of what is the recourse of not, us changing it this way versus a way that gives an opportunity for the properties around to address the impacts of such a change. I can see that argument as well. So for me, I see the argument from the chair of planning about the understanding of mixed use, that it has some opportunity in this area, but maybe that the answer is just you remove this parcel from it so that might address the issue.
So from what I'm hearing, I think all three of us have slightly different perspectives, I mean, significantly different, but three different perspectives. And so instead of trying to rehash what's already been said, I think maybe we can subdivide the decision. If I'm hearing correctly, contrary to my opinion, sounds like the other two commissioners, if we don't consider the two parcels associated with the gravel pit at this moment, everything else has been recommended by the planning commission as mixed use on the map. It sounds like both of you are in agreement with maintaining.
No, I'm saying I understood it.
Okay.
No, I'm
Could you
not.
please clarify whether
No,
you are suggesting to move forward with what's been proposed, or if you're asking to change it?
No, I'm not. My comment was, for me, I feel like this, we can reasonably leave it the way it is, but I'm saying I understand what Alan is saying. for sure, and I could be convinced to shift if you give me an argument that is more pointed towards, but I'm saying those two parcels, I'm not in agreement with changing their usage. I understand Alan's argument of somewhere in here, mixed use might have some value if you remove those two. That's where I'm wanting to shift the conversation to, is having that as to why we would or wouldn't, because making it clear that I do believe that the impacts of 95 do come into play, because we don't know what that impact to our infrastructure would be. And I guess I'm pulling that as, let's shift to that conversation of that mixed use change, if that change occurs at all.
So I think that's the question that's on the table.
And so I'm saying, like, can we, if we're going to say, let's, based on the way we've all been talking, it sounds like it's a 2-to-1 of not changing those two parcels. Let's just assume
I
that
believe
that's
you
kind
and I
of where we
both
are.
made that statement.
So outside of that, given what Mr. Songset said about mixed use might have an opportunity somewhere here, is there somewhere in this that you, Commissioner Donkey, feel that mixed use would be appropriate in this area that's currently rural 5, I believe, residential? I thought you were saying south. Sorry, I was acting like I could move it longer than I'm confused.
So I'm still reluctant to identify additional parcels right now that are in the Sagal area in this corridor. Because I do think from a future planning perspective, we need to be very aware of the fact that significant changes are intended. And so I am not in favor of selecting any of these additional parcels to be changed to mixed use from rural residential at this time. I'm more than happy to look at what's been proposed and see if there's even areas we could add parcels south of Sagal along the 95 corridor. But I don't believe this area is a place that at this time, I think it's in our best interest to make such decisions to change, knowing that we have significant changes coming down the pipeline.
And when you say south of Sagal, where are you?
I would say essentially, once we get down to the Beaufort Road area, since the ITD is intending to make significant changes from Beaufort up to the Long Bridge.
I'm not opposed to not changing anything, mostly also because it is very residential there, and I feel like that impact there requires me to have a thoughtful consideration of increasing a different use type in that area, although recognizing it's along 95, that's not the only thing that impacts how we make a map. Just being on 95 doesn't mean a person should assume that their area is going to change from what we have it currently designated as.
So yeah, I recognize that identifying parcels that have the ability to provide additional inventory for those types of uses would be beneficial. But I think this is the last place we should do so at this time, given the changes that are intended. So my position is to make no change on the current land use designations in this area when it comes to mixed use that we're currently looking at. So the question is there another commissioner that agrees with that position? Or if you both disagree, then we'll address it differently.
I'll support that position.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
this is Don Davis. So one of the principles that the Planning Commission used in any of these designations was, well, a couple things. Continuity, for one, but also proximity to major transportation corridors, whatever. So looking here at 95 and at 41, and even Highway 2, there's places where commercial and other uses have been established. Then there's a gap. Then there's another section, a gap, so forth. Plus, a lot of these parcels along 95 that we recommended the designation for mixed use, their only access to transportation system is presently the 95. So it'll be a frontage road in the future. That being the case, it just seemed logical that it would be sensible to put that in that designation for those future uses, which is, granted, it's a lot of different potential zones, but they reflect toward the highway, not back to the neighborhoods. The exceptions, fine, deal with the exceptions, but that was part of those two criteria were part of our rationale for these types of designations.
Thank you. And I acknowledge everything you just said, making sense from my perspective. But when I personally overlay ITD's intent that we not understand this time, that alters my perspective as to what I believe is the right approach. To me, that alters too much how those properties would be accessed in the future and how they should be designated because of that. So that's where I'm disagreeing, even though I see that there's a logical path that was taken for the current proposal. So then, as we look out onto the peninsula, the board had discussed, looked at this area sort of, I don't know if it was initially, but prior workshop. And the only areas where I believe the focused conversation were in what was referred to as the Blue Islands. Excuse me, and I don't know if we came to a conclusion, so I just would like to confirm when it comes to this island effect, what the board's position is, if we are going to continue forward on the map with the proposed designation of rural residential in isolation from the surrounding designations, acting like an island, or if we're going to create continuity and have those areas become the same designation as what's surrounding them. And so it's my recommendation that we create continuity. If we choose not to, then I would ask the board to figure out how we're going to address the conflict with what the new policies say in the land use component of the implementation, or the land use section of the implementation component, which says we're not supposed to create islands. That's not the intent, I should say. It would be conflicting with what we just adopted recently in the implementation. And policy 13, I believe it is, I'll have to look it up.
So for me, for sure, that one in the middle, the blue that's in the middle of all the light green should have the continuity. What I can't recall is, was there a reason that the stuff that was near the edge was different? And I thought that there may have been, that there was a reason why that one wouldn't change, but that our real discussion was on the one that was in the center of whether or not that would change. But I thought there was a rationale given as to why we wouldn't change the other ones. But it was.
So the one adjacent to Camp Bay, yeah, it's Camp Bay, on the south rim of Camp Bay. The parcels that are shown there, they're all larger parcels. So they are presently, the comp plan designation is rural. And they're zoned 5 acre, not the 10 that the rest of the surrounding area is. So, and also you can see the little tabs that stick out to the northeast from those larger blocks. Those are ownerships extend down to the lakeshore so that they have access. So thinking about that.
So they're not individual smaller.
They're not
parcels,
individual small
they're-
parcels, right? They're all part of the 1, 2, 3, 4 other parcels. Yeah, each parcel has its own shoreline, shall we say. The two trapezoidal sections are old mining claims that were sold off and are residential in that sense. They may even have houses on them at present. They also sit in the middle of the forest, the U.S. Forest Service.
So is is there a rationale for these that would make them significantly different than the other adjacent parcels?
I don't recall that there was. If anything, it was, because this is one of the areas too, we looked at those small parcels along the south shore of the bay and thought about, as we did with all the shoreline, putting those in recreation. Then the question came up, well, if those are recreation and those tabs stick out from these larger parcels, should the larger parcels be recreation as well? And that really talked about a lot of impact. So I think that was the rationale. We said, well, let's just leave those rural so they could be in a 5-acre zone and not conflict with the shoreline parcels they're already there. They're, in that sense, grandfathered. Same thing with the island on the other side. They're presently zoned. That was the other part. If a parcel had gone through a zone change, as we talked about a few weeks ago, then we decided to put the residential designation on those. It could go either way because the other parcel over there, those so-called islands, they can't divide any further and they are what they are.
So it'd be okay to make it all uniform then?
In that specific case, this one, when they're in the shoreline, I don't think it, in that one too. Matt's gonna go.
Before we do another comment, can I ask the board a question? Do you guys need legal in this kind of meeting, or do you want to release it?
I don't think we have a need when we get to the actual public hearing.
So,
At the end of the process, I think that would be very appropriate, but for the workshops, I don't know.
Nate's here.
Is it okay,
I don't
Commissioner,
think
if
we
we
were
release them?
here today.
I didn't want to make you
Section
sit
release
back
program.
there for 3 hours if you didn't want to sit and watch paint dry.
It's been enjoyable.
You can definitely stay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Oh wait, he wants legal.
Yes, sir.
Could I interject?
Please.
That's Chad for the record, JS. Would you mind hovering your cursor, Commissioner Domke, over where you'd like me to revert the
I think you can
change
leave. I don't think he was here.
from-
So if we start,
Thank you.
on the Highway 95 corridor in particular?
So let me back up for you.
I have made some changes, but I want to make sure I'm clear.
So. What the majority of the board decided at this time is to maintain current designations in that area.
Okay. Above Lynn Scott area as well?
Yes, so that
Okay.
when it comes to the mixed use versus rural residential,
Correct.
and so if that, right now, I'd say that can happen offline of the meeting if need be. I know it's a lot of change right now, so if you want to track what we're doing in the other areas on the map, I think that can happen later. That'd be more efficient for you.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm making correct changes.
Thank you for clarifying.
My understanding was above that plant, the Lynn Scott plant, and then down to Dufert. Is that correct? We're reverting back to rural residential?
So, yes, we said, but let me pause because we were focusing in, I brought up the comment about Beaufort, but we were focusing as a board, I believe, in what I'm referring to as the Sagal area, downtown Sagal, if you
I think
So-
we made no changes
would. I want
to
to
the current map.
confirm with the board that's.
Yeah, I'm sorry for interjecting again. The reason I'm asking for clarity is there are some other changes too north of that, where an urban growth area was changed to mixed use, and then a larger transition area was also split up into suburban growth area and mixed use as well. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on what changes I'm making. And we can go over them after as well, Commissioner Domke, just to make sure that's correct, but
Well, no, this is great for you to ask because we should do the full board. otherwise it could get misrepresented unintentionally. So I'm not going to change it. Okay. So that's current. That's proposed. So it's my understanding we were only speaking about changes to mixed use designation in our past conversation.
Yes.
So there was not a disagreement with the proposal to expand the suburban residential zone or designation, excuse me. There I am using zone as a designation. It's hard.
It is hard.
Does that help clarify?
Yes, I have just made a number of changes, if you wouldn't mind, just looking at the map in a moment here and letting me know if that is consistent with what the board is looking for. Should update in a moment here.
We'll just blame any time lag on the government shutdown.
If you pan and zoom as well, it might help with the update process.
Careful.
There we go. The changes should be effective now.
Oh. So if we go turn off recommended, turn on current. And I see we do, so in this quadrant, we do have, because it's we have to take into account that under current land use designations, mixed use also counts for suburban, whereas now suburban's been broken out, so we have to look at the two in concert. Everyone else is probably already tracking that, and I'm saying that for my own edification, so they're looking at it correctly.
I think it's helpful just for you to say that loud though, because then everybody who's not can see, not everybody knows those details. So thank you.
So I agree that that as Chad has updated it, appears to be consistent with what we discussed. Is there anything you should disagree?
I don't disagree.
Chad, have we fully answered your question at this time?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you for clarifying with us. That was really helpful. And then,
Back to that section, so I think, Don, can you address those the island in the middle, because you addressed the kind of edge. Is there a reason not to make conformity?
I was actually going to address similar things as well. So I can say, at least from the land use perspective, from the planning department's perspective, that some of those islands, especially that island in the middle there on, I believe that's Garfield Bay Road or Garfield Bay Cutoff. So that was a zone change that's happened in the past 5 years. By statute, the governing body cannot change a zoning designation that has been changed by an applicant. So the applicant could change the zoning, but we would not be able to for 5 years from when it was done. So their zone change was to rural 5, which would match with the rural residential designation that's proposed. Since the rural residential that's proposed is just going to be for 5 acres. And that's the same, and not for those ones on Camp Bay, but for the one out to the east, northeast there. That's the same for that, and there's a handful of those around the county.
so then, and we need to talk through if it's a good idea or not, but would it be accurate, let's not use an anchor. Would it be accurate to say that it would be in compliance with LUPA that we can have a map designation of agriculture, but the zone could remain rural residential, but that might be a confusing situation to create?
So, sorry, I didn't say my name earlier. Alex Fan, interim planning director. According to the Givens-Pursley Land Use Handbook, anytime that a zoning designation and a land use designation don't match, it's not in compliance with the comprehensive plan one way or another. So
Okay.
they do need to match, and if they don't match, then it's if it were an applicant-driven thing and they didn't match, it would be considered a spot zoning.
So we would be, if we did that, we would be intentionally creating a problematic situation,
That would
which
be
is
correct.
ill-advised.
That would be an ill-advised, yes.
And then what I'm hearing you say is that because of state statute, since these have changed within the last 5 years, then we're essentially legally obligated for them to remain under the current
I would say so.
zoning, which then by best practices means the designation should conform.
I would say so.
Okay. So then we are,
Sorry.
where we're able to, such as the Camp Bay area,
Mhm.
we can create the continuity that a land use policy says we're intending to do. But if we have an exception, we can point to the fact that it's due to a legal obligation.
That's correct. And there is a layer on GIS that shows zone changes since July 1st of 2020. So it does have that. I don't believe it's on this tool that you're using, but on our internal GIS, there's a layer.
So what I'd like us to do then
It is on there.
So I can turn that on.
What I'd like us to do is, from a planning standpoint, is make sure that we're identifying, because in a way that we created the oddness in the map by the zone change that took place. And so that we recognize that for conformity's sake, that we might want to address that at a different time. But then for now, where we are is, does the board want to address the two pieces on the outside that were identified as, there's not an issue with making it conform?
So I think if I heard correctly, Camp Bay area is the only one that was not changed within the last 5 years, and therefore
That's correct.
would be
The top one,
appropriate
is
to
it?
create, this one they said was included in the zone change.
You're a little slow.
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
it's the
Okay,
speed
okay.
on the, I should look up at the
No,
at the
you're good.
monitor instead of at my computer. It's much faster on my screen. It's
Okay.
real time.
So both of those two blues, 2 out of 3 are recent zone changes, so one of them could be changed.
Chad, did you say I could turn on that? Yes. Please show me so that the board can see in the public.
The I that has a dash through it, zone changes, July 1, 2020. And then just above that, you'll have
Turn
to
that on.
activate. Yeah, you have to activate that current land use zoning as well.
That one.
Yes.
So it should be,
So
hashed
the
out.
hash, okay.
Mhm.
Angled hash marks indicate that the zone change has occurred since July of 2020. So that's where you were saying these islands, as we're calling them, are legally required to remain. This area is not. So then we have a majority of the board that desires to change that for consistency to the agricultural designation.
Yeah, and likely it was all rural residential in that area prior, and that's why the zone change happened. But since the new proposed designation for ag forest, or for rural residential rather, doesn't include 10 acres, that's why it's ag forest now.
So it was 2020 that it changed?
I believe that one was 2021. I show the one on Garfield Bay as of April 21st, 2021, and the one on close to Gamblin Lake was August 26th, 2021.
Thank you. Does the board have any other areas on the peninsula that they'd like to address?
That dark green one there at the end of, is that Garfield Bay there? In between the two state, is that state land? Okay, thanks.
This area, Commissioner?
Yeah.
Mark.
The two recreations there are split by that one parcel. So that's, yeah. That's
Government
plan. Okay.
To the west.
Look at this one.
Yeah, where the
County, yes.
campground is.
Yeah, it's state land.
Okay.
Not for the campground, so it's state land and it now has a campground.
State land and the county campground.
Yes. Anything else, Commissioner?
That's all I have.
So I want to acknowledge that we are in the Gold Mountain area. I'm not sure how you guys designate it again, but since the planning commission needed to address the entire county map, and because the sub areas did not incorporate the entire county, they created these areas. So
7 or 8 geographic.
yeah, we've addressed within this Gold Mountain geographic area thing. We have addressed everything up through the 95 corridor and east of it, but we have not yet looked to the west side of the 95 corridor in this area. So start panning through here, and if there's an area that the commissioner would like to focus on, please tell me where you want me to zoom.
Guess where?
This is a little bit of an anomaly to me. Let me go back to if this was changed in the last 5 years. Not up here. Not up here. Changed. Mr. Davis, do you have any insight to offer?
I don't recall that one. It may be in a slightly older zone change that took it to 5. Not offhand.
Zone change did not show up.
Is that the layer that will show the date of the zone change? Because there's one layer that does that.
It should,
It's one of the, as you bring it up, it'll have 3 or 4 records under that file.
the cross street there, Lake Shore and
Oh.
Sundowner.
You're going into the resort.
Yeah, Sundowner to the north. North Springs Drive to the south.
I don't show that that was a reason to change.
And the designation is recreation. Yeah.
And the current is all rural residential. So you propose recreation for these smaller parcels and then suburban this area, just. It's interesting to me that you guys didn't do recreation for all of that along that road frontage.
I would actually like to ask that question. Why did we not continue all the way around? Is there a reason?
At one time, we had just about all of the parcels along the shoreline potentially designated recreation. So even extending, of course, right there that's Springy Point Park, the green one, so that's federal. But then the small lots all the way along Lake Shore. And I believe we had all those at one time potentially designated as recreation. So whether those are leftovers that just didn't get removed, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I definitely think that this standalone parcel here should revert or remain rural residential. Unless a larger change throughout this area is going to be adopted, but I think the bigger question is, should this area move forward as recreation? And if so, should this also be recreation or the suburban fields? But I'm wondering if somehow both of these were leftovers accidentally from prior proposals. Because it's very oddly isolated, like you're saying, from other smaller parcels along the water, along Lake Shore.
Could very well be.
Chat again, JS for the record, if I may. That kind of long, skinny subdivision there, just immediate west of that suburban area, is a planned unit development. As to the other ones, I'm not sure, but that might shed a little bit of light on what's going on here.
So is this parcel? Or the one north of it?
It's actually, it's designated resort recreation, just to the east of that, Commissioner Bauke. Just to the west of that. It's a whole subdivision. That's a planned unit development.
So, I'm sorry, which one? Go ahead.
This whole piece here is a planned unit development.
Oh, this entire.
Correct.
So both designations are being shown, the recreation and the suburban.
Not the suburban, just the recreation.
Just the recreation.
And just that one
This is a
subdivision.
PUD.
And, yeah, basically just all of Sundowner Lane,
Okay.
minus that.
So does that
L
not
shape.
include this area?
To the east of it,
Correct.
not from what I've mapped.
Okay.
So why wouldn't those three parcels to the east there that are waterfront, why wouldn't they be recreation?
Matt here, like Don said, we originally had all that, pretty much all the river comp plan as rec, and we gone ahead and changed a lot of that back. But I agree, we're looking at that area, that bay, and there is an inlet, as, even those parcels around that cul-de-sac, every single parcel in there has waterfront. There's an inlet bay. It's kind of hard to see what's going on with these layers on there. But I agree, those three parcels next to those should also be rec, because we have to go ahead and apply, similarly situated properties have to be dedicated the same. We're gonna run into trouble, with statute and precedent if we don't. And so I agree, those things should be, if we're going with rec on those, we need to go with rec on those other three as well.
Was this one of those areas that had a lot of community input as to whether it was not rec, or this is just one of the ones where just it it seems like it's reasonable to make it all uniform, and then to address the standalone railroad.
Yeah, my only question with that is, there's the adequate water and sewer requirement with RAC for the current proposed designation description. And with the PUD, I'm imagining that that's all required and incorporated, whereas with these other non-PUD individual parcels, we don't know that would be actually accounted for. So I could see having it on the PUD, but I don't hear a convincing argument for why the other parcels around the PUD have that designation.
The recreation designation,
Yeah,
because you're thinking it might be water.
yeah, just given the location, I'm not aware of. It's because they're telling us that this area, my cursor is low enough, is a PUD. But then this and these are not. So the PUD would address adequate water and sewer requirements for the rec restriction designation, but those other parcels wouldn't necessarily have that requirement then. Mr. Somstead?
Yeah, when you're looking at similar parcels like you are right here, one's a PUD and I don't know what the other three are, but you start looking at, well, their sewer, they're the same, they're pretty much the same. I would just caution you to consider the county more as a whole, because when you get to the Priest Lake area, we changed a lot of subdivisions which have sewer from a rural 5, which they weren't. All these parcels were very small, some a quarter, third of an acre, almost all less than an acre. We changed those to recreation, and we just got a tremendous blowback. So we left them all rural residential. Whether that makes sense or not, that's what the community wanted, so that's what we did. So if you're gonna go down this road, well, is it sewered and is it similar to the other lots? If you start making those changes, just keep in mind what you may have to do when you get to the other areas of the county. We made those changes. We thought they were logical changes, but the community didn't think so. So just a word to the wise.
I do appreciate that clarification and reminder of that community input history. So thank you. Mr. Bowman?
Yeah, hi, Dave Bowman for the record. A couple of comments. I would echo what Alan Songstad just said, because I was there throughout all of that. And I would really urge you not to, I understand the desire for continuity, and that's what drove a lot of those changes that the community, that there was so much backlash about, and really for good reason. And to Mr. Linscott's statement saying that you have to make similarly situated properties the same use. That's not verbatim what he said, but in essence, or you're going to be in trouble with statute. I don't know where that's coming from. There's no statute that says that two properties that are similar have to be designated the same. And if you start looking parcel by parcel, and I was going to say this over on the peninsula when you're looking at those two, and I know I've said this before, but it keeps coming up anyway. There's no benefit. So you have these, I know that it's maybe disconcerting to have these little islands that are different from what they're surrounded by, but this county is speckled with them from border to border. And there's no harm in them. And this is what the non-conforming is all about. So you have, I would urge you to look at, if you start making these changes, a parcel or a subdivision at a time, just exactly what Alan said. You're starting down this road, and you're going to be faced with this all over the county. And this is through the planning commission process and all of the roadshow and everything else has really been asked and answered. And there would be no benefit to the public, which is what you're chartered with, to say, to make these changes parcel by parcel or a subdivision at a time or whatever. It's area stuff. And there is a benefit, and there's no downside to having something be non-conforming. There is zero downside to it. It just doesn't take anything away. And I think it's a huge, in my opinion, it's a big distraction from the overall goal that you're trying to achieve here. And I don't see any benefit to it. Downsides only, no upside from my perspective. And I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that. So thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Hidden?
Yeah, just very quickly, I too couldn't find anything in my notes that explains why this little area was left rec and those two suburban standouts. Current zoning for all that area is all rural. And I think it probably was just overlooked when we changed things back. So I think that whole area needs to go back to blue. as the current plan shows. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Drumheller?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Dave Bowman and Alan Songstead said. There was a lot of discussion about changing areas to, conform to what the underlying zoning was, and the parcel sizes were. And I think that having non-conforming uses is absolutely okay. I mean, this is a guide for future growth. It's not supposed to necessarily reflect exactly what's on the ground right now. And Project 7B went out and talked to a couple professional planners about it as well, and they agreed there was no need to try to make those non-conforming uses conforming by changing the land use map and those designations, because it could lead to further erosion of what the actual overarching goal might be for that area in the future. So yeah, just wanted to echo what was already said. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have anyone in the room that would like to offer comment? So I do, Ms. Drumheller, if you could put your hand down, please, just so I don't get confused. Thank you. I did very much want to take to heart what Mr. Songstad said, because I know I read the vast majority of those emails that came in at the time around Priest Lake. I can't say I read everyone, but I saw there was a strong theme being presented by a vast majority around that community. So I agree with what Mr. Hidden said, that it would be best to just revert all of these back to the current rural residential designation to maintain the continuity, since we don't have any clear rationale to do otherwise. That's the current land use map. Speechless, you're both
Well,
speechless.
no, because I can see, I understand not making changes for the sake of changes. I also understand that we're not gonna be able to make everything have this very, it's not gonna all be exactly the same, and we're gonna have non-conforming. So,
This is supposed to be a map for basically our future growth. That's what this is all about. And it just doesn't make sense that some of these places such as this would be rural 5 on the water.
I can appreciate Mr. Song, so I can appreciate Songstad's input on this, especially as it relates to other areas where, that had a lot of input on how things were changed.
So I think what we're seeing is, for example, if we continue along the river, that if I heard and understood, I think some of these areas were earlier in the process by the planning commission recommended it as recreation designation, but that based on feedback, they converted it back to the rural residential. And so that's, I'm recommending that we also revert back based on that feedback and maintain continuity as the plan says is the intent to have rural residential.
I remember some of the comments, especially from the Priest Lake area, were concerns of how, kind of similar, how it would change the areas.
So this is Don again. Originally, our thought was, with all these lakeshore and riverfront lots, was to put a designation of recreational resort. And in that definition, the resort is what caught most people's eye. And we backed that off to recreation, but by that time, it looked like the tide had turned and people were saying no. So we scrapped everything along the shorelines, predominantly everything from the recreational. That one PUD has it still because that's exactly what it is. But the other, I think it was an oversight to leave those two suburban zoned areas. But all the rest of the shoreline, you won't find that same designation there anymore.
You had a recreation zone up there. Keep going backwards. Right there. Upper left. Is that a recreation zone?
Yes. And that may be, yeah, that's another PUD, I believe. No, it's just a very old subdivision with small lots.
So in my mind, that's where it comes back to some of the comments we've heard, that there's no harm done in an existing non-conformance. And I think we're better off to follow what the currently proposed comp plan language has in it that says to try to create continuity throughout an area, which continuity would be for all of that pink and yellow right now along the water on both the east and the west sides of what we're looking at to remain rural residential. Mr. Songstad?
Yeah, just one caveat. Stuff that, the parcels that were already had a land use designation of recreation and zone recreation, we did not change those back. Those are all obviously conforming currently, and we weren't going to make them non-conforming either by suggesting it should be a land use designation and ultimately a zone change. So the areas that you see that are recreation now are currently recreation and have been for a long time. So you're going to see that in various places along the waterfront, or close to the waterfront. Again, in the Priest Lake area, there's a lot of recreation zoned and land use designation recreation areas, and those did not change, and they shouldn't change. People have been living with those for a long time.
So that concludes today's presentation.
Let me see if I can make that
There's
work.
not a planner in this room that wants to come back on this topic, right? So Alan, can you, while he's bringing that back up, kind of go over, then what is your recommendation, having heard the discussion on this and the recommendation that planning has with respect to changing or not changing?
All right, so what we did was we tried to make all similar parcels along waterfront and close to the waterfront that appear to be recreation. They're all small lots. You can see there's all kinds of them along the shoreline. We started to make those all changes in recreation. We did make those changes. We went through all those workshops, and everybody was, not everybody, but a lot of people were very upset about that. And I'm not really sure why, but they were. So we changed it back. But we did not change anything that was already recreation, a land use designation and zone. We didn't change those. Those should not be changed. So if you want to, so I think all you're dealing with are parcels that we had suggested be changed as a land use designation to recreation. Now, some of those, like this one area you talked about here, that's a PUD. Obviously that doesn't make much sense to do anything else with that. But again, that logic did not prevail in our community workshops. So we tried to change things back. I'm not sure why this wasn't changed back, but it wasn't. So does that answer your question? I'm not sure that I did, but I just wanted to make the point that we did not eliminate recreation where it already was recreation.
So what I think I'm hearing you say is that the recommendation is to leave recreation where it already was and to not make that change, to make it, that's what you're recommending.
That's what we ultimately did, yes.
And so Commissioner Domke, your comment of to revert it back to residential, that isn't addressing what, those are two separate things because you didn't change it from something, you left it alone. And so they're recommending you leave it alone, so.
I don't believe that's correct, because these are not currently recreation. That's what I've been showing, they're not currently recreation. So, if I go, so here's the current land use designation for this area.
So it's
And if I look at the current zoning, so there is no current recreation in those locations. So that means it should stay rural residential.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna find that there are some other areas, from what I'm hearing from Mr. Songstad, along the river and around Priest Lake, where we are gonna find there are some existing designations of recreation that they're proposing to leave that way. I think we should be thoughtful about seeing and understanding that when it comes up, but I don't believe the ones we're looking at right now fall into that category.
Thanks for clarifying that, because I want to make sure
It's a good question.
that we're not, that we're understanding what,
Yep.
because we kind of sometimes go a little back and forth. And
No,
on this
it's-
one, this is because, and in part, we're comparing where we are to a spot that we're going to look at a map change. So
Yeah.
based on this, the map doesn't show recreation, and so the recommendation then, as I suggest the nodding of heads, is leave it the way that it is. Okay.
That's
Donna
rural
said-
residential.
Don Davis shook his head, yes, leave it as it is.
But when we say as it is, leave it as its current
Currently
designation of rural residential, not as proposed as it is. And I totally understand, so please, you know, it's not clear what I'm doing with them, right? Because it's easier for me, because I'm driving, so I'm switching between layers to try to show the difference.
Yeah.
But everyone else may not be seeing me change the layers to realize, so I should probably tell me, remind me, and I'll try to
Where we at?
verbalize what I'm showing on the screen, so I apologize for not having done that clearly.
So we want to revert suburban back to rural as well?
Yes, so both the suburban and the recreation areas that we looked at here along Lake Shore and the river are currently rural residential and they should remain that way. So then, Chad, you need any,
No,
it's showing up, thank you.
It should be changed, yes.
Way faster this time. Maybe the government's back online, somebody check. And then moving to the rest of the Gold Mountain area, I'll just continue along the waterfront. Clarity. See any more anomalies? Jewel Lake area. And we're gonna get a little bit of Blacktail area. It's probably confusing, that's the next geographic area.
If I may.
He needs to know.
Chad JS for the record. Thank you for allowing me to interject so much. I just want to make sure I'm covering everything. So kind of at the bottom of Gold Mountain near Lake Kokolala, I believe there was some changes to mixed use in that area as well.
Thank you. So I'm going, right now, we're looking at the proposed map. I'm gonna try to do a better job of this. Narrating. I'm gonna turn off the proposed designation layers and turn on the current designation. I'm gonna try to do the two at the same time if it's gonna change. So if you can see these 5 parcels in this triangle, this parcel and this parcel are being proposed to be added to the mixed-use designation, where today it's considered transition. And I see, and this was my prior comment, that as we get south of Dufert Road, out of the area that we understand is intended to be significantly changed in the future between Dufert and the Long Bridge, being on the 95 corridor access, it makes sense to me that we understand that those parcels make sense in the future to have something like the commercial zoning. So one mixed use designation makes sense to me there to provide some growth opportunities. It's the square. So we get north of Dufert that I have the concerns.
Do the little lines here mean anything, or like
Zone
the
change. Let me turn that off.
Oh,
There you go. That was that zone change layer.
so those were changed within a time frame where you should change it, or no? I don't know if they do, because it just says.
Correct, but because they're in the transition, actually, I know for certain, because we've looked at this was a really funky one where the zone and the land use designation did not align. So that was a really weird area of the county. So somehow that was, I think, improperly zoned originally, because it didn't comply with the land use designation. I can't speak to a few of these others. I'm not sure what their history is. But because they are currently designated for transition, then the mixed use proposal should not be inconsistent. I think legally, it should be still everything allowed the same, essentially the same zoning capabilities. So that legal issue should be involved. So is there anything that's been proposed in this area that a commissioner would like to see done differently?
No, not really, other than the fact that I'm not quite sure why it doesn't continue up further north, like on the west side of 95 there. I don't
In
know
this
why
area,
that got-
Commissioner?
I don't know why that got left off.
I think the railroad right here divides.
On the left side of 95.
Oh, on the left side,
Yeah,
sorry.
on the west side.
So for example, these parcels,
Yeah. Why wouldn't that be included?
I think that's a good question.
Mr. Chairman, Matt Linscott, I'd like to remind you guys also that this is also part of that same corridor, that same highway that we were discussing through Sagal is right here as well. This is where they're gonna go ahead and put their interchange in. So any arguments that you use in one place, you gotta use the same and be consistent with those as well. With that being said, the entire highway system, all the way from the Long Bridge, all the way to connecting with Garwood, is proposed at some point to be a divided freeway.
Well, that's what I was thinking too, all the way from Canada to Coeur d'Alene is gonna end up being that way, so. Not gonna change that, it's coming.
And also, the reason why we gone ahead and looked at these different areas, because it was determined, I believe the county's already adopted the economic development component, was instead of creating commercial sprawl, was go ahead and take those existing areas that already have the commercial or industrial areas and expand on those versus creating that sprawl and that patchwork all the way down the highway system.
So trying to keep it closer to where there's more infrastructure, like Sandpoint, Athol, Hayden type thing, instead of just allowing it to be out in the middle of nowheres, but still on Highway 95.
Correct, and also, as you go down Highway 95, you can put your water and sewer district overlays on it, and you can see those as well.
Slide down.
Oh, is that the restaurant? Yep. I believe that's where the restaurant is. Yeah, I'm in agreement with what's proposed in the Westman area. Adjacent to the lake. Want to just continue down 95 south till we get to the bottom of the county, and then we can look east and west?
Which is right.
I think that's really good, it's really fast.
Let me know if you want me to stop somewhere. You know, tourist attraction. I don't want to know anything else about your guys' speed.
I said 70.
It keeps going up for some reason.
We have to make it.
Okay, so
So the purpose of the mixed use there is because it already exists? Post office and everything, or?
Yeah, Matt Linska here. That's where the post office used to be, correct. And so there's some existing, now, though it's not zone commercial, but those are, traditionally what's have been located at that. And it's a major intersection with Bayview Road right there. And I believe that's how come that was identified and designated. So it also didn't make much sense to go ahead and have that strip from the highway and have that ag, and then all of a sudden you have the rural. Didn't make much sense at all, because you have that paved road going through there.
Yeah.
And then that little parcel, I can't remember, see from here if that's a 10 or a 20, that's sitting by itself, that's a recent zone change as well. Maybe staff could follow that.
Turn on the hash mark, still see it.
I did turn on the hash marks, it's not going up.
What about the big rectangle area that looks like it's ag right now, instead of rural? Right? Just to the south of the middle of the
It's
screen.
almost encompassed by the rural. All Wallace's.
A lot of it is Wallace's, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, what I'm trying to understand is, so these parcels, this large parcel, these are all ag right now. So I'm not sure why they'd be rural residential, especially a large parcel like that. 162 acres. 106.
I'm just keeping the consistency thing in the back of my head.
Right.
We do it and then we don't do it, and I'm just trying to figure out when we're gonna do it.
I want to be as consistent as we can, absolutely, and so this remaining ag is consistent with this current use, and it's surrounding these areas not being ag and being changed to rural residential, I think is less consistent.
Well, we're not trying to build a comp plan map to existing conditions, we're trying to build it for future growth, correct?
Correct.
So, I don't know why, it's in essence an island.
So what, I guess the way I would look at it is the current, there's no island if you look at the current designation. An island's being created by creating the mixed use area at the corner.
And enlarging the rural.
And enlarging the rural, correct. So I don't disagree with the mixed use proposal because of the adjacency of the highway. Again, I think we do need to find some appropriate locations for that. I just don't agree with changing the ag to the rural residential. I think it would create more continuity to just allow, as we have in other places, commercial to occur along the highway at crossroads like that, but not change the current ag designation near it to rural residential.
And I'm just wondering if maybe, I don't know, don't want to speak for the planning commission, but I see a lot of smaller lots throughout that whole area. I don't know if that was why that was done or.
Matt Linsky here, it's because the Signal Fire Station is there. Now, today, it's not staffed. When we were drafted this, it was staffed. There's a chance it may be staffed in the future, we don't know, but it still is a fire station there.
I'm sorry, Mr. Westcott, were you referring to that comment based on the mixed-use aspect or the rural residential? I don't
The
understand how
rural residential aspect, right where it says, I think I can see from where it says carried on that map.
Yeah.
Okay, so sitting right there, that's where Bonner County has a waste spot, and also the Sego Fire Station sits right there. So we're looking at, fire protection and things like that, access to the highway, as, that criteria, those descriptors that came up for those land use designations.
So I'm gonna guess again, that some of this stuff was changed. You went from ag to rural. And because rural got changed, does not include 10 acres anymore. I'm guessing that's why the colors are changing.
So I see what you mean about services.
Yeah, they're there.
And if you're going to have some additional growth, it makes sense to have the services close.
So a couple of things have been rolling around. This is Don. First off, when ITD does a project and it's got federal money in it, the requirement is that they must look at, review, and consider the local land use plan, whatever it is at the time. And you're not supposed to design the land use plan to either help or hinder the state, either way. But ITD's concept at this point has another full interchange, not right at Baby Road, but a little bit north through that parcel that's now the DeLay Farms, and a frontage road up the east side and the west side, which would essentially, if the plan goes ahead as drawn, it wipes out the solid waste station and the fire station. And we had discussion, the state had discussions years ago, back in the early 2000s, with the fire district about relocation costs and with the county about relocation for the solid waste site. So, but will that happen? It's hard to conceive, because of where the railroad sits, hard to conceive of anything but the 4-lane where the highway is now, and then frontage roads to the east of that. So it's fairly predictable that those two public services would be relocated. Where? Who knows? And try to keep them in the same area for sure.
And do you know the zone change layer is on, but these two parcels?
It's not.
appear to be recent.
It looks like it just got missed. I was just
Oh, it
checking with
is,
Jack
it's just
to chat
isn't
about
showing
that.
up on
It
the
was done in
layer.
2022.
Okay,
Yeah, that was those two ladies.
okay, so then that's a legal requirement for this island. Board comments on this area?
I'm fine with it.
Commissioner Cole?
I'm okay with it. I just think that ag property there in the middle of all the blue should probably just get changed to rural as well, but
You're saying this area?
yes. And for that matter, if you went up north just a little bit to where rural stopped and go over to the west and come back down that line there, I don't know why that wouldn't be rural as well. Looking at the parcels. Just to the left of the proposed multi-hip. Why would you just square that off? I don't know, I'm just thinking simply.
I agree there's an argument to be made with regard to proximity to highway and services.
Right.
I guess for me, in part, the planning commission looked at the map and where authority should make some changes and they've given kind of that recommendation. There has to be a point at which you draw the line of not changing. You're gonna have some transition. And so it's not, I think that the way that it has been presented is not an unreasonable presentation. I don't think that we need to change. Then where would you draw the line of stopping if you changed all along that corridor? And what's the reason to not change a little bit farther versus just saying,
Yeah.
I mean, where do you stop?
It is a hard, and there is, to that point, I think we want to be thoughtful about, we understand currently, based on calculations, we have what I believe was a 10 to 12 year inventory of existing available parcels for development. So we don't have a significant need to try to produce more parcels that can be subdivided and developed based on zoning, which is driven by the land use designations. So at that point,
Although we're looking at a map, just like he just pointed out, there's more that's going into the consideration of where the growth is than just the picture of the map. And so I don't want to treat you guys, that's the only thing that they considered when they looked at their suggestion for the map. And I think that comment really does kind of.
For instance, as Don again, you can't do any of this exercise without looking at the parcels that are there. We're constrained by that. You look at the nice square lines we have, those are because of parcels. Beyond that, terrain, public road system, services, in this case here, to the west of the railroad, if you're familiar with that whole area from, down at Kelso area up, it's quite mountainous. Huckleberry Mountain is in there, there's little smaller ones. And none of the road system on that side of the highway is public. So it's, how would it develop? We tried to put that into account. Just collectively, the lots that are there are larger for the most part. And also, this whole Sagal and Bayview area down through that part of the county, many of the parcels existing have either ag forest exemptions or some other type, but mostly ag forest exemptions, tax exemptions, because they're actively involved. And there's a lot of strictly forest exemptions in that area. So taking all that into account, that's why we said if it was presently rural designation, and then the zoning would be the 5 or 10 R5 or R10, the ones that were 10, that now reverts to ag forest. So that was all those together, we concluded that should be ag forest designation.
Thank you for that. Because when you're looking at a 2D map, it's very hard to understand.
You could turn on the slope layer on there and you'd see part of that. But also the road layer, you see it right there. The roads, public roads are designated there, and there are none west of the highway. So,
pretty sparse.
yep. So,
Leave it as is.
I'm in agreement with leaving it if you guys.
Leave it
As
as changes.
proposed.
Yeah.
And then if we pan to the east, we have one area that jumped out to me. So as we get down into, unless I'm misunderstanding, prior comments from Mr. Songstad, that currently rural residential, which is a little surprising to me. What's being proposed as recreation.
that's Bayview. Okay, and the other one, I think it was,
So, does anybody have any additional information about why, maybe this was one of those got left over from the original thinking that didn't get updated based on the new thinking of it only staying recommended as recreation, if it's currently recreation. Just trying to understand this.
Matt here, you know, what we got ahead and done is we try to look at those areas and apply those criteria and descriptors that we came up with to those areas. That's what we're supposed to do. And it fits that rec. It definitely does.
I know, but then there's the exception that was made throughout most of the county, and that's what I'm trying to go back to that comment from Mr. Songstad about we're applying that filter the same.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with the criteria comment, but that goes back to the whole priest lane conversation.
But that section there will never be Rule 5, never. So it makes no sense to make it Rule
Yeah.
5.
Do you recall if you had any public comment on this area?
On that one, I hear what you're saying, Commissioner Belke, but I think that the way in which this one was changed makes sense. Because I
I'm
don't.
in agreement, I'm just trying to.
I think that hard line might not work on this one, because I think we have to concede that point of it, because barring that, this change is reasonable. And in a way does create the consistency that you're talking about, just not, it's not as easy because that's not what it was, but I can see the rationale to change. So I support the recommendation that planning has on that section.
All right.
Before we move on, we are coming up on the 3 o'clock. Are you going to go over?
No, I was informed that because the downstairs conference room is being used for elections, we have another meeting that's going to be, needs time to get set up in here, so we are going to have to end at 3 o'clock. And I was actually hoping, thank you for mentioning this, that we could potentially just finish this area if we don't have, so I wanted to pan through the remainder of this graphic area. That's what Commissioner Davis referred to it as. I try to remember the terminology. And please, commissioners, shout out if there's a place you want me to stop or something. But I'm not seeing anything to draw attention to, unless one of you.
I felt we hit the areas that I had an issue where I wanted to have discussion.
If you'll just go back just where you were. I don't know, huh? There on the left, where we have the ag, below the rural. Yes. You're reading on my pretty good. Just out of curiosity, why that square of land is also just rural.
Are you talking about the old platted city of Clagstone?
The whole square,
Oh,
the whole square of
you know,
land.
you have a railroad there, that dark, I don't know. It parallels to the southwest, that's a railroad track between that and Kelso Lake Road. Those other parcels, those were a zone change. I don't know if those were within 5 years or not. That one might have been a little longer than 5 years, but it was a zone change. Yeah.
That's why we have that funny little tail right there and not the whole.
So this whole area was a zone change.
Yeah.
Chad JS. Some of these parcels were actually split designation, and so there was some calls made on where to align them to.
Thank you for the clarification. Ooh,
There we go again.
Good timing.
Nice.
I'm glad we were able to finish that area.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Commissioner, were you satisfied with that answer?
Yeah.
Commissioners, can I give an update on what we've got coming up next for workshops? Just so we can inform the public, so.
And part of what I wanted to do with that, Director, is talk geographically about how we're planning to move through the rest of the county so the
Sure.
public knows which workshops they might want to spend their time coming to
Mhm.
versus not. So if we're gonna move clockwise or counterclockwise from where we currently are, would probably be helpful for us to indicate our intent.
Sure.
I'd say it makes sense to go counterclockwise. We kind of worked from
We just went clockwise.
Sagal down south, didn't we? We just went south, so now we need to go over towards Blanchard and come up and around.
So you wanna go clockwise?
Yeah.
I just wanna know when you're gonna get to the Clark Fork area.
It sounds like last.
That's fine.
I think
I might still
Commissioner
be
was
here,
looking
but
at this
it's-
clock, so he
In case
wasn't
I can
sure
watch
which
this
way.
via Zoom.
Based on the digital clock, we are.
We're gonna move that direction. Okay, so then we will begin, I don't know what these designations are, but for the general public, from here, we will proceed clockwise, which means we will continue to move west across the southern half of the county, through the Voodoo Valley, up into the Blanchard area, up into Old Town Priest River, Priest Lake, and then sweep down to finish in the Sandpoint, Sully Valley, Clark Fork areas,
Clockwise.
clockwise.
I mean, it
It's
makes
not that
sense.
clock.
It makes sense that area would be probably last.
So, Director, did you have additional input, feedback for us on, based on that input?
That's fine, and I can make that known as we discussed in our update meeting, to put that as the emphasis of those meetings, but still give the board the flexibility to talk about everything if there's some areas that are quicker or some areas that might be take a little bit more time. So I'll keep it open for the entirety of the county, but put an emphasis on that area. So I will start with I guess call it western portion of the county.
Southwest?
Yeah, sure.
That whole area is just going to make sense anyways, so that should be fascinating. Here we draw the crowd.
So the upcoming workshop dates we have with the board, so it'll be, the next one will be November 6th at 10 a.m. Followed by November 13th at 10:30 a.m. and November 20th at 10 a.m. That first one was November 6th at 10 a.m.
Thank you for that clarification.
And we will make sure those are on the calendar on the website.
And from a housekeeping perspective, did the way we did things today, other than my doing a better job in the future of letting you know what I'm turning on and off to look at, did that seem to work fairly efficiently for everyone? I think having Chad in the room, letting us know when clarification is needed was really helpful from my perspective. Does that work? Recommended changes to our process? Mr. Songstad?
Yeah, I had a question. When you start these meetings, it'd be nice to have an end date. I mean, if you have end time, so we know if it's going to be a 2-hour meeting, a 6-hour meeting, or a half-hour meeting. So like the one November 6th is at 10. Is it going to end at noon, or is it going to go all day? It'd be nice to be able to plan.
Yes, thank you. We can state that at the onset, and right now, I don't know how my calendar's not. Our intent would be to end, each one has a 1.5 to 2 hour block, but it depends on the date. So if you could date those, please, Alex.
Sure. It looks like the 6th and the 20th would be a 2-hour block, so from 10 to noon, and then the 13th is 10:30 to noon.
Thank you. Ms. Eisner?
Thank you. I should have said this 2 hours ago, but I don't know who's running Zoom, but all I've heard is open mic and scratching, and I can hardly hear the commissioners. It's been a challenging 2 hours, so if we could work on that, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. It is 3:03 p.m. and this